to the She's a 10 times 5 show with hosts Laurie Jabbar and Michelle Emick. We're bringing public figures, subject matter experts, and other accomplished guests to the Studio 50 table to serve you up the best tips, tricks, and key takeaways that all us midlifers want to know about. Okay, time to join us for some times 5 fun. Let's go.
Okay, all you tenors. With new technologies, Ozempic face syndrome, and a consistent flow of new trends, we're back to discussing how to look as good as we feel with another award-winning and world-renowned facial plastic surgeon, Dr. Mark Karolak. With more than 3,000 surgeries performed without general anesthesia, Dr. Karolak's popularity has risen. He's been featured on E! News, Bravo TV, People, and many more. Michelle and Laurie will find out all the tips, tricks, and what to look out for in the world of facial plastic surgery and aesthetics. Let's go. Look as good as you feel, with great skin made simple. Welcome to the all-in-one skincare system created by world-renowned plastic surgeon, Dr. Amir Karam. There's no need to look anywhere else. The Karam MD Trifecta packs more than 20 state-of-the-art ingredients into an easy 3-step system that addresses all aspects of aging for your best skin ever. Use discount code SHE'S10 for 10% off your purchase. Let's go.
Okay, we are here today with Dr. Mark Karolak. We're so excited to have you here, Dr. Karolak.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I can't wait. I've been excited about this all week.
All right, well, we're going to talk about all things face, surgical, non-surgical. One of the big topics that's out there that everybody, you can't get away from it, is this weight loss, the weight loss drug, the Ozempic, the Wegovy, all of that. And people keep talking about Ozempic face. So I like to go right in. I don't want to wait on this. I want to know what, talk about
Dive
this.
deep quick.
Well, I want to dive right in.
Not only that, but I have an ecosystem of women in my community that you can't get away from Ozempic. And it is not in all cases, but in many of them, you see the dramatic change in the face, which kind of has that aging feel to it. So
yeah, and it happens pretty quick, right? So Ozempic, for people who live under a rock, I mean, it's a diabetes medication that has the side effect, that was found to have the side effect of weight loss. I mean, phenomenal medication for health, people losing weight, managing their diabetes, and getting off other medications for, for cholesterol, for heart, their blood pressure. I mean, it's a great drug. So now being marketed as a weight loss drug as well from I think 2 manufacturers, and then compounding pharmacies. So what's happening with Ozempic is that people are using it, they're losing weight in a rapid way and sort of accelerating the aging process in the face. Now, we don't really understand exactly what's happening and how, why it's different than just losing weight or maybe having bariatric surgery, but there's things I've been seeing in my practice that are just a little bit hard to explain, but it's not in every patient, so I can't put it across the board. So accelerated weight loss in the face, hollowing out. I've been noticing buccal fat loss in patients. So really interesting.
what is buccal fat loss?
All right, so our face has different fat components through it, and buccal fat is one of those trendy terms that caught a lot of attention over the past maybe few years. It's one of those things that was in vogue back, I'd say maybe in the 70s and 80s, and then came back again maybe 5-10 years ago. So buccal fat is a fat pad that's in the face, just outside the corners of the mouth, underneath the cheekbones. And once I describe it, you'll be able to look at your favorite celebrities and start picking out who's had it. But once you remove it, it really creates a gaunt look here, highlighting the cheekbones, sometimes fillers put there to exaggerate it, but it causes that sunken in look right under the cheeks that reflects a pretty deep shadow under the cheek line.
I know that was a big trend for a period of time. Are you still seeing that? And how is that? For those people that had buccal fat removal and now they're on Ozempic, I mean, what's going on? What are
Yeah, see, that's why one of the things that I've never gotten into in my practice and my philosophy is trends. So it's all about restoring faces, maintaining as much of the natural anatomy as possible without being destructive. So, and I learned this from one of the doctors who trained me. I remember my first year in residency where I was doing office hours, and he brought me into a room and said, "I want you to take a look at this woman, and when we come out, we're going to talk about what you're seeing, what you see, and what's wrong there." And the woman was in her late 60s, maybe approaching 70, sunken in, completely sunken in. And we came out and he said, "You know what? I did buccal fat removal on this patient 10 years ago, and this is why you should never do it." Because it's very difficult to replace, right? So now there's always caveats to these things. If you do it conservatively, if you have somebody that understands what they're doing really well and they don't overdo it, you can create a little bit of improvement and magnify it by cheek filler, which is not permanent, or fat transfer. But the more fat that's taken out of the face, the harder it is to replace, the quicker our faces look like they're aging. Segue into Ozempic face. It's happening so much faster in younger patients, and it's almost across the board. You're seeing it everywhere now.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue into, so you've got this fat loss. Now people are looking for volume. And I know a lot of doctors have different, well, there's a lot of people out there injecting. We know about, well, not everybody maybe knows about filler migration. What is your feeling? Because I think anybody on the surgical side is going to be a fan of fat transfer, but I want to get your take on what your thoughts are, because, you know, there's a lot of opinions out there on filler and how much is too much, if you should do it at all.
Right, right. So I think you have to when you hear someone give an opinion about some of these things, you know, a lot of that, some of them are based on studies, some of them are based on what doctors are seeing, and some are based, you know, unfortunately, financially, what that person is doing and what they can't do. So they're going to offer what they can do. For me, it's always been one of those things. I've loved non-surgical treatments throughout my career. I love surgery, and I blend them wherever I feel I'm going to get the best result, and it's going to be the safest. Right. So when it comes to volume replacement, the two big head-to-head ones are going to be fat transfer, and it's going to be fillers. Fat is taking fat from somebody's own body and putting it into syringes and injecting it into certain areas of the face. Filler, you know, pre-filled syringes with a gel, that's really a sugar that our body naturally breaks down. Both of these restore volume. So you're putting, where there's volume loss, you're putting something to replace that. Now, fat is permanent, filler is temporary, or we thought that for years. And now we're learning that, you know, when you bring up migration and things that we're seeing with pillow face, we're noticing fillers do stick around and they leave residue. And for surgeons like myself who use more advanced facelift techniques where we're going, you know, under the muscles, getting further out into the face, freeing up the ligaments, almost, you know, seeing a lot of the anatomy, that's where the fillers are getting placed. And so we're coming across those fillers, and we're seeing patients who haven't had filler maybe in 5-10 years, and there's filler still in their face. You know, they swear they haven't had it. So I think both are great. I have my own philosophy on it. And again, what I tell people that come to see me is, by the time I'm done talking, you're going to have a really good sense of what's going to work, what won't, then go get a few other opinions and, you know, use what I give you as a foundation to do a little bit more research. So I've been doing fat transfer for a good part of probably 12, 15 years. I've been doing facelifts for about 18, 19 years. Fat transfer, I used to do it on standalone procedures. I don't do that anymore. I only use it in combination with facelifts, because when you compare fat and filler, there are two different types of material. I find fat to be very heavy and bulky, and very unforgiving. So what the places that I find it works really well for volume loss is areas under the muscle. So in marionette lines, which are the lines down from the corners of the mouth down along the chin augmentation. So you're looking at areas where there's a lot of muscle to hide fat under. Cheeks, mid-cheek, even along the cheek line, nasal folds. I've gotten away from doing it under the eyes. There's ways of doing it where you actually take the thick fat that's coming out of the body and filter it, putting it through syringes and injecting it. So it's more of like a liquid. But here we are now destroying all the fat cells that we're using for volume. And we're just using cells that we're hoping will stimulate blood flow, stimulate some fat growth in these areas, but not really knowing exactly what we put in is going to stay. So fillers are gel, and I can almost put fillers anywhere. The trick is not to overdo it. So, and with any volume replacement, I could show you fillers I'll use under the eyes. Good news is if it doesn't look good, you can always dissolve it, right? If you put fat under the eyes, that's a big revision procedure. That's one of the things that there are doctors who specialize in, revising, taking these things out and fixing the problems that are caused with fat transfer in areas that it doesn't take well. Filler, you have that back door where you can dissolve it and make it go away. The problem that people have been encountering is pillow face, right? So that's where, let's say a doctor just does fillers and they don't have any other lifting methods. They're filling the faces with fillers to plump the face. Now, and then what people look like is distorted versions of themselves or pillows.
Don't want that.
What's that?
Don't want that.
No. It's not an attractive look. One way to look at it is, if the best way to look at it is break it down. Look at the way aging happens, and then you can kind of pick and choose what procedures are going to work really well. Right. So the three parts of aging are going to be skin. As we age, we lose elasticity to the skin. Early in our 30s and 40s, we start noticing surface texture changes, and skincare works great, but eventually you get to a point where you've lost so much elasticity that skin's sagging. When there's sagging skin, the only thing that's going to work is surgery. You can try all the other things, but it's not going to work. And it might complicate surgery later down the line. Then you get into volume loss. And that's what we're talking about right now, is with fat transfer and fillers. Well, volume loss starts approaching, or we start seeing it in our faces, usually in our 30s and 40s. We're not talking about a 20-year-old coming in wanting to get big lips, or, or have a celebrity that they want to have cheekbones like. These are talking about people who are finding that they're starting to look a little drawn, hollowed out. The light's not reflecting off their face as good as it used to. So they come in and you start to replace volume, and you do it with fillers. I feel fillers are excellent as long as you do small amounts where it needs it. Eventually you get to a point in our 40s and 50s, and that's where we start noticing sagging. And when you start getting sagging, the mistake that people make, and what leads again into that pillow face, is that they're so used to doing non-surgical treatments that now they're like, well, it's starting to look worse, so we should maybe do more fillers. And that's not the answer at that point. In our 40s and 50s, we start losing muscle tone, faces start to drift. You could have great volume that's maybe still been replaced by filler, but it's migrating down like this now because the muscles can't support it anymore. And when muscles start drifting downwards, debate it as much as you want. The only thing that works to move muscles and put things back or fix the foundation is surgery or a facelift. So now if you look at it that way, you can start to pick and choose the types of procedures that work. So when it comes to skin, early on, fine lines and wrinkles, lasers, peels, skincare. When you start getting sagging skin, burning it is not gonna help it, or going under it and heating up muscles and things like that. It's not going to help it. It's going to create burn scar underneath. So without going in through to different types of procedures that do that, or picking on procedures, it's just a fact. If you go in.
I just doing that, because there's so many people out there that are like, well, my friend had this done, and they're not going in to get the facts, because they're just going to be spending money on things that aren't going to give them the results they're looking for.
Yeah, and I don't think it's, I mean, I hope it's not, I know it's not malicious. I mean, everybody's looking for a newer way, a less invasive way of looking younger and feeling good about how they look. And and for a lot of people that, their cost isn't even that much of the issue. It's just they don't want to do surgery. And then for others, it is. And then they get sucked into doing these things that just can't work, or complicate surgery later down the line, in which to a point where they might not get as good of a result as they could have. So if we go by treat the skin with skin treatments, treat volume with volume replacement, treat loose muscle with lifting. I mean, that's the procedures. And if you try to treat loose muscle or excess skin by burning or heating it, you're damaging fat. And then you get the fat the cushion of fat between the skin and muscle starts to go away or scars and becomes irregular, and it doesn't look supple or plump anymore. And
When you say burning it, are you referring to like these very high-end needle treatments?
heat devices, anything that's generating heat. So the way a lot of these some of these non-surgical treatments work is that they're really intended to be skin treatments, and they work great on the skin. And I see patients who come in and they have great results, but it's being used for skin treatment. So with the skin, because with the skin, you can basically do an acid as aggressive as an acid peel and burn the skin. You see these people like peeling their skin off, and then a few months later, they look amazing. You try to do something like that aggressive on the neck or underneath the skin, you're creating a lot of damage because the skin can withstand it. Fat can't. So then you talk about taking these same treatments that work well on the skin and now going through the skin, maybe getting into the layers or like the fibrous portions underneath the skin that go in between the fat. So you have a layer of skin, you have a layer of fat, layer of muscle. Skin treatments like heat, treat the skin works well. Now you start going through fat. Well, fat is like, it's like, Jello. You heat it up, it's going to liquefy and go away. Now, right? So, and then worse, you go even deeper with these devices and you get into muscle. Now you try to tighten the muscle by creating heat, which is now going to create collagen, which is not good collagen. It's scar tissue. So that's a form of collagen that's used to market it. So they get these, they start getting burning of the muscle, which can cause scarring. Again, I have a very biased practice because I never took on a lot of these devices, but I see people who are unhappy with them. But I don't see the happy patients. So, show me all the happy patients, I'm fine, but this is how it works,
I just find it, I love listening to that. I can hear it all the time. You and I know each other. I spent 20 years in that industry. It's like such a delicate place to be because we know that these companies have big marketing budgets and they're out there pushing things. But if you really come down to it, when you talk to plastic surgeons, they're going to tell you, be careful what you choose.
Yeah. Again, and then you have the people, I think the people that debate it from the non-surgical side or even the surgical side, surgeons who are using them, they're like, no, it works well. Like as long as you treat it in the skin, it works phenomenal. So,
Example of devices that you're talking about?
Nobody wants to give a name.
I don't want to get into that, but I'll tell you, I've had patients, who 8 years out from a facelift or, 9 years out from a facelift came back and they're like, oh, I think I need to, want to get another facelift and tighten things because we all continue to age. Nothing stays in a vacuum, right? If someone has a facelift and it doesn't matter what age they have it, there's going to come a time where surgery is going to be helpful again. But I've had patients come in and, 8, 9, 10 years out from a facelift and they look amazing. It's just they've lost some of the collagen and elasticity to the skin. And I refer them out to doctors who I trust who do these same non-surgical treatments that I've been saying, like, if you do them incorrectly, you damage fat and muscle. I send them there and they're tightening their skin with it. And they look amazing for another 2-3 years and hold off having a facelift. So I do think these things work. I think it's just operator dependent and
yes,
right reason.
That is the key, operator dependent, because there are a lot of, I don't know if we call them corporate practices, whatever's out there right now. There's a lot of people out there that are offering services, and you have to make sure that you go to someone that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm not against any of them. I'm a big fan of non-surgical, and my mantra is always, when's the right time for surgery? When there's nothing non-surgical that works.
Well, I have a lot of people that I know of that, have heavily relied on the deep microneedling. And I'll just say Morpheus is one.
Yeah.
And it's not cheap. And I think, so what I have heard with some of these techniques is, you get an initial boost, but then you're back to square one again. And meanwhile, you've signed up for 3 to 5 of these sessions, and it's a very big investment. I mean,
yeah, well, you have to get through also, with any treatments, whether it's surgery, whether it's fillers, whether it's lasers, whether, it's radio frequency microneedling, you have to get through the sweet portion of the recovery phase where there's a little bit of swelling and everybody loves how it looks. And then you want to see what it's going to look like when it all settles. And the problem is when these things are done, these non-surgical treatments are done aggressively or not correct, in my opinion, not correctly. They get to that point where the swelling's gone. Now there's less fat. And now you're looking at a neck that a year later might look older. And now they're coming in for surgery. And I'm having this conversation with patients. Well, look, you have irregular scar tissue here. This area's got fat necrosis. This is fat hypertrophy, and it's all over the board. And now I have to go in there and blend it out, try to restore as much of the natural anatomy. But once you lose fat, it's very difficult to replace it in the neck. It's very different than the face. In the face, you can work around it, but the neck is different.
Okay. Well, I got another one.
One more thing
Okay.
one more thing on Ozempic face. So
Yeah.
those women that have, and I mean, I shouldn't just say women because there are men that are doing Ozempic as well, but for
Definitely.
the sake of this show, women that have gotten that path of really dramatic weight loss, they see it in their faces. What's the course of action that they should take?
For Ozempic face,
Yeah.
you're talking about? Yeah.
Like
So of course,
hollows out, like you feel great about your body, you're in good shape, but your face the reaction to Ozempic has been very dramatic. How do you course correct?
yeah. So again, that I try to tell, I give the secret to aging, right? It's simple: skin, volume, muscle.
Mhm.
All right. So depending on whatever age they're at, right? So if someone loses a bunch of weight in their 20s or 30s, skin's going to contract. There's not going to be much muscle looseness. I mean, our bodies are very forgiving when we're younger, right? Because there are people that young that are using it for diabetes and for health reasons and weight loss. Get into like late 30s, 40s, and 50s, it's a little bit different. Now you're dealing with natural aging, so you have plump faces. They're deflating. The skin's lost elasticity, so it's not contracting with the weight loss, and instead it's getting to its weak point and then just sags. Same thing with the muscle. Fat's underneath the muscle, plumping it out. As the fat starts to go away, the muscles sag, the jowls form, the folds get deeper. Add to it, now you're losing fat in the face that was causing that. So now you're getting hollowed out and you've lost volume, skin, volume, and muscle. Excess skin, you have to remove it. Loose muscle, you have to fix the foundation and tighten it, and then restore the volume in a youthful, natural looking way without overfilling. And I typically do that with fat transfer. I love it. So that would be the way to get back to that. Now, let's say someone doesn't want to do surgery and they want to go non-surgical routes. When the muscle's loose, I just don't think fat is a good option. It's going to weigh the muscle down. So it's better to do small amounts of filler, maybe fill in a little bit of hollows. I think that works great. Skin peels. So let's say somebody's now they've lost their volume, they've got skin sagging, they have wrinkles. I think chemical peels are worth exploring. TCA peels even phenol peels. I send patients to a dermatologist for those types of procedures, not too infrequently. So
Okay.
there's a lot of options, but you need to find somebody you trust to guide you through it.
What does Laurie,
Yeah.
what Laurie and I, what do we need?
Oh, come on.
We're going to get a consultation. I think there's the other thing I wanted to mention, because there is a lot of misunderstanding of facelifts, and obviously that has evolved throughout the years. But when people think facelift, they immediately think it's full, face, neck. They don't understand that it's a facelift, a neck lift, and then there's mini lifts. There's all different things out there.
Right.
So you give just a quick kind of Cliff Notes, a little bit overview on what that is.
You got it. So terminology is really confusing, and the sooner people understand the terminology, the easier it is to kind of filter through that information. So to make it in its simplest form, most facelifts nowadays are what are called lower facelifts. They address the lower part of the face. Okay. Full facelift means you're doing your full face. You're lifting the brow, you're lifting the mid face, and you're lifting the lower face. So that would be a full facelift. Full facelift is not a better version of a face, like another version of a facelift that's better. It's just encompassing the brow, mid face, lower face. So if someone says they've had a facelift, most of the times it's what's called a lower facelift. Lower facelift can be anything from a mini lift, SMAS lift, to what's called a deep plane lift. Those are three more of the more common types of lower facelifts or facelifts that are out nowadays. Mini lifts also go by the term short scar facelift. So that means this incision that's used to get under the skin is shorter. It goes by the term J lift or S lift, and that just has to do with the shape of the incision. So a J looks like a little J in front of the ear, and then it stops behind the earlobe. And S has a little extension, and it looks like an S, and it still stops behind the earlobe. Mini lifts give limited access, and it depends on who you talk to. But for our discussion, a mini lift is going to allow the surgeon to go under the skin, maybe tuck the muscle a little bit. And a lot of times I've seen surgeons try to overcompensate for that little bit of muscle tightening by pulling the skin tighter. And then what ends up happening is that skin pulls back and causes pixie ears. You don't want to be pulling on skin with any types of procedures. The limitation to mini lifts is that it might tuck the jawline, but it won't do anything to the neck. Because you have to, in order to get any neck improvement, you have to use that front incision, extend it behind the ear, and then go down along the hairline. That back hairline portion allows access to the neck muscles. So the neck muscles are called platysma muscles. They're rectangular muscles that there's one on each side. The edges go from the chin down to the collarbone, along the collarbone, up to the jawline and back down. So it's a sheet of muscle, 4 edges. So with a lower facelift that has the extension of the incision behind the hairline, you can get down to this edge of the muscle in the neck and tighten it. With a mini lift, you can't. Moves us into the SMAS lift and deep plane lift. Those are the two more common types of facelifts nowadays. And I've done all of these. So I can tell you, I think SMAS lifts work really well. I think deep plane facelifts are much more predictable, at least in my hands, and reproducible as far as results. So the reason being a SMAS lift, the SMAS is the muscle that we're using to tighten faces in a facelift. So the SMAS lift involves an incision that's in the hair, comes around the ears. Again, that incision, it allows me to go under the skin. And in a SMAS lift, what the surgeon does is takes that SMAS or edge of the muscle and pulls it. Right. Now there's attachments of that muscle throughout that are pulling back. So it's almost like a bow and arrow, right? If you're going to pull something against something else, it's going to want to pull back. So with a deep plane lift, the incision's pretty much similar, if not exactly the same. So I go under the skin, and instead of pulling on the SMAS, I make an incision through it, go under it, and now I'm in the area where I can free up the attachments to the muscles. And people think, well, it's a lot more invasive. Well, if you know what you're doing, you get in there and there's no bleeding. It's essentially bloodless, less bleeding than I encountered years ago with SMAS lifts. So you go under the skin, free up the attachments, and now I can take the facial muscles with the skin attached in this area that I'm covering with my hands. The skin and muscle can come together. I can raise them and lay them back down in a new position, and they're going to reattach instead of pulling against them. The idea is that the results tend to last longer. So people talk about how long do facelifts last, and it's all debatable. It has to do with skin quality, lifestyle, also surgeon technique. But most people agree like maybe 5 to 10 years on a SMAS lift, 8 to 15 plus on a deep plane lift. So, so that's facelifts in a nutshell.
But when you say the attachment, are you talking about ligaments?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
What are some of the complications of like a deep plane? It sounds like that's the cleaner way to go.
Well, so it's cleaner as long, again, it's a more advanced type of facelift that's gotten a lot of attention over the past few years and has become probably the trend of 2024 that's coming up, or that we're in, especially add to it the Ozempic face. So fixing the foundation would be done with a facelift. Deep plane lift, when you're talking about complications, the complications for facelifts in general are going to be similar. right? So you're going to talk about things like that, every surgeon will see is things like maybe infections, which they are very rare, but they do happen. Scarring, there's going to be scars, but as long as you have a surgeon who's, pretty skilled at what they're doing, those scars are going to be minimal, if not imperceivable. Other things, bleeding, usually very little bleeding with these procedures. The deep plane lift, because there's less tension on everything that's being moved around, there's that benefit of typically less scarring that occurs with it because there's less that's pulling back on it. Nerve injuries are going to be probably the most devastating, I think, complication for a facelift. Fortunately, they're very rare. Even nationally, the rates are very rare, and if they do happen, they're usually temporary. Now, does one have a higher risk of it versus the other? Fortunately for me, I've never had a facial nerve injury, so 0% in over 3,000 facelifts. But that's also including all the facelifts I've done. But I think if you don't know what you're doing and you're going in under the skin, SMAS lift is a great way to start to get into doing facelifts. Once you start going under the muscle, you really have to know anatomy well. Otherwise, you can get into trouble very quickly. So I think it's coming. So to answer your question, the risks are similar between all types of facelifts. Those would be the main risks. And the experience of the surgeon is going to dictate, how common those risks are going to be.
Okay, let's talk eyes.
Yeah.
So you can't do one without the other, right? If you're going to do a mid face or a lower face, if you don't do your eyes, right?
Laurie and I have a debate about this. We've gone back and forth because I'm like,
well, okay.
I'm going to start with an upper blepharoplasty, upper eyes. I'm not quite ready for the lift yet. I will be, but not going there just yet. But I feel like you can do them separate. And I know a lot of people feel like, they want to balance and they want to do it all.
I did an upper and lower.
Yeah. So you did yours separate.
Because I mean, I felt like that was the thing that I was most self-conscious about, was the puffiness of the eyes. I felt like it made me look tired and not fresh, So I did do that separately. But if you're going to do your face, I would have to think, if you haven't done your eyes already, or your neck, really, I mean, isn't that kind of the way to go? It's kind of like when you paint your cabinets and then you realize your flooring doesn't go right, and then all of a sudden you need new sink fixtures. So
right.
Do all of it. Okay.
Well, so I mean, it all depends on the patient. So you have somebody coming in and their neck is sagging and their jowls are sagging, and they come in and they're telling me, I look so tired all the time. People are telling me I look tired. I could fix their neck and jawline all, to perfection, and they're still going to look tired, because that term tired comes from around the eyes. Now, if they say they look angry or unhappy, that's typically down here. So the most important thing is to address what the patients see, because I can do whatever I want, but if I don't address the one thing that they're looking at or understand what they want to do, they're going to be unhappy. I'm not one of those surgeons who feels like you have to do everything all at once. For some people, it's more of a matter of easing their way into it. I think blepharoplasty is probably one of the most common standalone procedures I do outside of facelift. More commonly as a standalone procedure in men, because they're coming in and they're finding that their eyes are sagging, they're looking tired. Removing skin, removing fat makes them look more awake. So it just depends on what look you're going for. Now, if somebody comes in and they say, tell me what you think I should do, and their eyes are tired, I'm going to recommend it, both of them. I mean, you're going to have one recovery. You don't have to go through it again. But it's not a hard and set rule.
Do they still call it the full boat? I've been out of it for a long time.
Full boat. Yeah, I guess. I mean, then you get it. Yeah, I mean, full boat, that'll be like, temporal lift, fat transfer, upper lower bleph. When people look at my
lip lift, are you doing a lot? Do you do a lot of those?
I don't do any lip lifts. I get some slack. I get some slack on that, but again, like it's my philosophy. It's how I run my, what I always felt looks good. And some people gravitate towards that, and others, they go somewhere else, which is fine. I don't like the look of lip lifts. And I've seen the patients, go ahead.
Is it cutting around here and then lifting?
Yeah. Yeah. So so what a lip lift is, there's measurements. So, as we age, the length of the distance between the nose and the lip starts to get longer. Some people just genetically have that. They don't have lips, thin lips. So a lip lift involves making an incision under the nose. So just almost like where the shadow of the nose and the lip come together, removing some of the skin to roll the lip out, right? So it brings it up and out.
I can't go there.
So again, I don't like, it's my personal aesthetic, right? So
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
been, in my eyes, what I like, I've seen very few lip lift results that I like. Then the ones that I like, and I'm talking to the patients about, oh, who did your lip lift? They'll say so-and-so. I said, well, it looks really good. And then the patient will say, yeah, but if I knew that I'd have to cover up the scar the rest of my life, I probably wouldn't do it. And then you have that very small section that I've seen where they look good, they're happy with it, and you can't even see the scar. But that's so far and few between. I mean, that's my opinion on that.
That's why, we wanted to have you on, and I respect so much for what you do, because you do stand behind the principle. And we all know there are many doctors out there that will add it on, will do it. And,
Yeah, it's a quick procedure. I mean, it's, you do enough of it, you get really good at it. But
I don't know about that.
it doesn't change. Like, forget about, let's say the scar heals great, and then there's only a very small amount of people that I thought ever looked good with them. So,
All right, I got a question off of the surgery. Did you ever think, all those years ago that you'd become like a celebrity plastic surgeon? How does that feel?
yeah, it's still a little bit surreal, but I try not to think about it too much. So, Laurie, I don't know if you know, but my practice is in central Jersey by the beach. And when, I was starting my practice, my wife and I were talking, and I always felt like I wanted to be at North Jersey, Manhattan, and she grew up down the shore. There are some family things going on that we decided, all right, we're just going to live closer to our family. And however busy you are, that's how we adjust our lifestyle. Well, year after opening the practice, people flying in, to like the private airport, coming in from all over the country. We get patients all over the US. I mean, it's crazy. And then the people that I thought I'd have to be in New York to get are coming out of Manhattan to see me. It's flattering, very flattering. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I
So,
was excited to watch you on Watch What Happens Live a few years back. It's like, oh, look, there's Dr. Carol.
yeah,
Cool. You were
yeah,
on the show, right? You're on the Real Housewives of.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've been, you can spot me on a few of the episodes. I was on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. But yeah, and people, I still get that question, like, why are you in Wall, New Jersey? It's like, where is that? You should hear patients telling their friends, I went to so-and-so, I went to Dr. Karolak, and they're like, where is he? And they're like, Wall, New Jersey. I'm like, where's that? So I think when you do good work, it transcends any, location, and people will fly, especially when it comes to having their faces done. They'll travel, they'll stay a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is, to
Well,
get
let
it
me
done the way
ask
they
you about
want it.
that, because I was told by someone that it was more important to be co-located or near or driving distance to your doctor for the recovery purposes. What's your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, and that's why, I always feel like if there's a doctor close that you like their aesthetic and they're good, it's always better to be closer. But the reality is that people find something in surgeons that they choose that they like, and it speaks to them, and they're willing to travel for that. And that's the way my practice is. So I think the most sensitive part of recovery is the first 2 weeks. Because after 2 weeks, my patients are allowed to go exercise. They can do cardio. At 6 to 8 weeks, they can start lifting weights and things like that. But most people are back into their routine and doing, they can take aspirin, Motrin, Advil. They can drink alcohol. Even after a week, they can do those things. So I think, the first week is very sensitive. The second week is still sensitive. But after you get past that second week of recovery, now you're dealing with things like, okay, healing, long-term healing. It's going to be a scar maybe that maybe needs a laser or an injection, right? So that's the aftercare. If someone's prone to keloids, that might need to get managed afterwards. So you have to have flexibility to get to the surgeon to do that. Preferably the surgeon that you chose to do your surgery. But fortunately, those things are very rare. So those are the types of longer term things that I think that aftercare might need, as far as scars or maybe little adjustments. But for the most part, the majority of recovery, I think, at least how I feel, is in the first 2 weeks.
All right, Laurie, you want a road trip?
Melvin Louise, baby.
Yeah, here we come.
Okay, one final question, then we're going to have a little fun.
All right.
So we talk about recovery, and I have seen this to be true as well, because I have had friends that have had procedures. There is this psyche that happens in some of those individuals where they're afraid to go public. Like they kind of, even though they've gone through their healing and whatnot, they're worried about the reaction of their friends and acquaintances that they have changed their face. Is that a significant thing?
Well, if it's true that they've changed their face and they look different, yes, because that's a common thing. Like, how many times do you see, people in the media where they don't look like themselves anymore? What do? They don't look good. That's not a compliment. You don't want people or you don't want anything drawing attention to things you've done. You want compliments like, wow, she looks great. Did you see her? I mean, we watched the Golden Globes the other night. There must have been 4 or 5 women that were just like looking at, thinking, man, they look good. They just look good. What did they do? And
Who did it?
yeah, right. Because you're looking at them, you're like, and what did they do? It's not like, oh my gosh, they're not the, water cooler conversation the next day. Like, did you see that? That was terrible. Can't even recognize her. So I think that it's a real thing, worrying about after surgery, whether you still look like yourself. But, as long as when you're going through recovery, you look distorted. Once you get through the first early recovery, you look like yourself. And most of the times, fortunately, in my practice, patients are coming in and saying, it's crazy. Like, no one said anything. Or they're like, did you change your hair? Or you lose weight? They keep looking at me. I had one woman who, yeah, I wish I could post her pictures, but she had her procedure, and then 2 weeks later was back at work, and she's a very high level executive, and there was 1 or 2 people above her, and one was a CEO came in. She's like, of course he comes in like 2 weeks after, my facelift, and he comes in, walks in, he looks at her and goes, all right, you look really good. What did you do? And she's like, oh, no. She like covered her hair. Then he comes back in, walked out. She said he came back in 3 times. And he's like, all right, you look really good. So that's complimentary, right? This is somebody that looks like herself, but maybe that's the attention maybe she doesn't want, but I don't think anybody doesn't want to hear they look good. It's, you don't look like yourself.
People that are getting facelifts.
Yeah, right. They want to hear they look good, right?
Facelift.
So she's on cloud 9 about that. So I think, there's going to be a time after a facelift in the early recovery that people will be self-conscious. And I usually find that time, because they don't really look like themselves, they might have, some irregularities as they're healing, which are just from swelling. And then as they get through that, the earliest they feel a little bit comfortable is, I think, at 2 weeks. I think the most comfortable for like a big event is going to be about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. There's still healing going on at 6 to 8 weeks. I usually find that it's about they're about 80% through the healing, but that's enough that they can be close up with people and typically no one would know. And then I think the most comfortable is 3 months. So let's say someone has a wedding or a big event. I think 3 months is they're going to be really comfortable at that point.
Okay.
All right, we'll start planning. All right, let's have some fun. We've
All
got
right. I don't know what this means, but
Oh, I know that we're putting
piqued my interest.
Okay,
What's that?
Do you play pickleball? We always have to start and ask that question.
No, I don't. I haven't gotten into it yet.
I haven't either, but Laurie's a big pickleballer. But I'll let you tee it up, Laurie.
Okay,
All right.
this is what we call the luxury pickleball lightning round. Check them
I
out.
don't even know what that means.
Well,
They're our sponsor, so
our sponsor, and you go to luxurypickleball.com and you get 20% off. Let's go. First
Okay.
question. This is to get people to know a different side of you that they wouldn't otherwise get. Soft toss, and then we'll go in with a little gravitas. Okay, first question. Where is what is your happy place?
My happy place is during surgery. It is so meditative. I am so 100% focused more than I've ever been. I think that's what I do, spend most of my time in the OR, and it is almost like going into another dimension. I spend 4 to 7 hours in surgery on one patient, and people who come in or they hear what I do, they're like, how do you sit there that long? Talk about being 100% focused and in, I don't even want to say a zone, because it's so much more than that. It's just, it really is like being in another dimension, focused on getting the best result that I can. Everything's drowned out. I mean, my assistants and I are like in sync. There's hardly any conversation going on. There's relaxing music. And that's my second place would be listening to music, writing music, playing music. I play guitar. So while I'm operating, I'm doing two of my favorite things, listening to music and operating.
just not together. Cause I remember that. I don't think we see it as much anymore, but you remember that period of time when all the doctors were in the OR doing TikToks? I'm like, I do not want my plastic surgeon or any doctor TikToking.
That's why, talk about like trends. Yeah, I never got into that. When I talk about what I'm listening to, it is classical piano, meditative. It's not, jump around,
No, have some. Okay.
flex and shake your body to it. No, this is like focus.
That's what we like. That's what we like to know. Okay. Next question. If you could sit next to anybody on a flight, who would that person be? It could be living or dead.
Oh, come on. Living or dead?
We got him.
Who pops in your head?
Jesus Christ.
Okay. Ooh.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much,
He's
being a believer or not, you can't deny that there's so much impact that, that one person had on life, society, how people treat each other, just how to live life, barring whatever religious beliefs people have. I think that just to understand and, especially, with things going on in the world today, there's other religious figures, but that would be the one that pops into my head.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
This one is silly yet important. Do you believe in UFOs?
I do. Do I think that they've been around? I don't know. I don't know if they visited or not, but I do believe in, alien life, but I don't know whether that contact has been around here. So.
Okay. All right. Next one, which I know you're a music guy. So what is the best concert that you've ever attended? Your favorite?
The best concert? Gosh. But my music taste has changed so much, but I still love everything. I've gone from heavy metal to, going to see Taylor Swift with my daughter and my wife. And I'll tell you, like, it depends on the mood I'm in, but let's see, best concert, probably Bon Jovi. I'm a Jersey guy.
Yeah,
I've seen Bon Jovi probably 5 or 6, maybe even more times. It's just like a homegrown good time type thing.
I'm going to see Billy Joel and Sting in next month. So that should be
That's going to be amazing. I saw Billy Joel and Elton John at Shea years ago. Do you remember that concert? That was insane.
Yeah.
That was a great show. That was probably like 30 years ago.
Hunters are the best. Okay, Lori.
Yeah.
Last
Okay. This is what we're going to end on. If you could tell your former self something that you know today, what would it be?
Myself. Not to take myself so seriously and give myself a little bit of breathing room to
Yeah.
grow and learn from mistakes.
I love it. Yeah. You know, it's interesting. He's our first male. So as I was speaking that, I was thinking, you know, he might have a different lens on this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
In what way?
I think most of the women we've interviewed thus far for this season have said something along the line, actually something pretty close, but basically, keeping your blinders on, don't care so much about the rhetoric and the buzz and all that stuff. Just kind of give yourself grace.
Yeah, definitely.
When
Well,
you
I was going to say, you also work with a lot of women. You're around women and you're in the office, your patients are women. And one of the reasons why I believe, in addition to your skills, surgical skills, is you have a great bedside manner and you have to have that warmth and empathy. So I think your answer reflected that.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than having someone work on your face
There's a lot of them out there.
that aren't very
Yeah.
nice about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very, very much for the time. I know it's hard when you are in the OR so much. It's hard to make the time. So I appreciate it.
Oh, it was an absolute pleasure. Like I said, I was looking forward to this. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Okay, listeners, thank you for joining us. And until next time.
Are you looking for high-end pickleball equipment, attire, or even a luxe pickleball vacation? Introducing Luxury Pickleball, the curator of all products and experiences for your social or competitive pickleballer. Paddles, attire, accessories, and quality life experiences wherever you travel with your paddle. Use discount code SHE'S10. That's SHE'S10 for 20% off for quality on and off the court. Let's go.
Follow us on Instagram at She's a 10 times 5. You can click on the link in our bio to listen to all of our previous episodes, as well as check out our live video interviews over our YouTube channel. You can also find us on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, pretty much wherever else you decide to listen to your favorite podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe.